Assalamualaikum and good evening, everyone. My name is Teacher Ain. So today I'll be talking or be presenting a topic about Autism Spectrum Disorder (ASD), which is a broad class condition that reflect a range of deficits. Autism Spectrum Disorder or ASD is a diverse group of conditions which characterized by severe and complex impairment in first reciprocal social interaction and communication skills, also the presence of stereotypical behavior, interests and activities. The onset of autism spectrum disorder is usually before 3 years of age and it persists the deficits throughout the life. Children with ASD is found in all racial, ethnic, intellectual, and socioeconomic background. A disorder that included in ASD is autism, Asperger's syndrome, pervasive developmental disorder, and specified Rett syndrome, and also other childhood disintegrative disorder. The unusual combination of sensory, communication, and behavioral characteristics seen with ASD have significant negative effect in the children's ability to participate in home, school, community, and community activities. WHO or World Health Organization in 2022 estimated that worldwide about 1 in 100 children has autism. This estimate represents an average figure and reported prevalence varies substantially across studies. Some well-controlled studies have, however, reported figures that are substantially higher. The prevalence of autism in many low and middle income countries is remain unknown. Alright, let's learn about autism. So what is autism? Autism is a neurological and developmental disorder that affects how people interact with others, how people communicate, learn and behave with each other. There are four factors that contribute to the autism, which is firstly, the impairment in brain development, secondly, the connections in brain areas, thirdly, the genes, and lastly is the neurochemical alterations. Alright, first one, the impairment in brain development. So currently, autism is considered a neurobiologic disorder. Although none of the mechanisms is definitively known, many reliable studies suggest that the impairment occurs during the sculpting or wiring of the brain in utero. So, neuroimaging studies have suggested that differences in cell density, like brains are heavier and a reduced neuron size in areas critical to the trilogy of social, behavioral, and communication disorder may be responsible for the impairments that seen in PDDs. So, individuals with autism also exhibit abnormal cortical convolutions, which is specifically some of their sulci appear to be deeper and slightly out of place compared with those of healthy control subjects. So, in typical development, connections in the brain are shaped by experience and learning. And with PDDs, it appears that synaptic and dendritic growth occur without guidance in areas related to communication and interaction skills. Therefore, the correct migration and synaptic connections are not met. And furthermore, studies show that when input is received in those with autism, communication between nearby cortical areas increases and whereas communication with more distant areas decreases. So as a result, this person have difficulty filtering or ignoring irrelevant stimuli and shifting attention when it is appropriate to do so. And the third one is genes. So the abnormal actions of the genes that control the myelination and the creation of synapses, also the dendritic connection, might be responsible for incorrect selective molding and elimination of synaptic connections. So, despite the compelling evidence for a strong genetic contribution to the etiology of autism from twin and family studies, uh, The unequivocal detection of a gene or susceptibility genes remain elusive. Lastly, the factors that contribute to autism is neurochemical alteration. So, neurochemical alteration play a major role in autism. So, studies consistently show that elevated serotonin levels, hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis HPA dysfunction, and abnormalities in neuroendocrine functioning. Although popular claims about the origins of autism abound, no evidence indicates that the disorder is correlated with diet or vaccinations, such as vaccine, mumps, measles, and rubella vaccine, or that this thing affect the development or prevent autistic disorder. Let's continue with the behavioral characteristic of autism. So autism is always or often coexists with neuropsychiatric disorders, including seizures, ADHD, affective disorder, anxiety disorder, OCD or obsessive compulsive disorder, and Tourette syndromes. So these behavioral are characterized by categorization, which is we can divide into four categorization. Firstly is disturbance in social interaction. Secondly, disturbance in communication. Thirdly is disturbance in behaviors. And lastly, disturbance of sensory and perceptual processing that associated with impairment. So the disturbance in social interaction usually affect the child ability to establish meaningful relationship with people like their parents, their siblings, or and inanimate objects. So this social interaction usually directly involve in interactions that require initiative, like role play, to talk one to one, and a reciprocal behavior from the child. So the child who have autism or who have disturbance in social interaction usually have a poor or deviant eye contact, lack of social reciprocity. They have delayed or absent anticipatory response to being picked up, lack of spontaneous seeking of another to share enjoyment. They are lonely and like to be alone, preference for being alone. Secondly, this disturbance in communication may be thought of as a continuum from a mild to severe. In a mild end of this continuum, normal language accompanied only by slight articulation or tonal deficits. Meanwhile, in a severe end of continuum, the child might be a complete lack of speech or mute. Many other communication problems also have been described at points along this continuum. And for instance, much of this speech of children with autism is repetitive and echolalic. Alright. The first one is a classic echolalia. So a classic echolalia consists of a parrot-like repetition of phrases immediately after the child has been exposed to them, such as example, like when you say sit down, and they immediately will say sit down. Alright, that is the first one. And second one is a delayed or deferred echolalia, which consists of repetition of phrases at a later time. For example, like if your children is watching a cartoon, they will uh, they will repeat the phrases uh, on a later time at anywhere at any settings without any context. So, like I said, echolalic speech occurs out of social context and appears to have a little or no communicative value. And other types of speech and language problem include syntax problem, atonal and arrhythmic speech, pronoun reversals, and lack of inflection and emotional during the communication. It's like we say in Malay is mendata tone. And thirdly, the disturbance in behaviors are seen where the child are intolerance of deviation from routine, where the routine they usually do, and their resistance to any type of change, also pattern of behaviors, which can be categorized as a stereotypical, preservative, and lacking in representational, also pretend playing. They also show a bizarre attachment to unusual objects, such as vacuum cleaner or a sheet of paper instead of to a stuffed doll and a toys. So this pattern of behaviors are obsessive rituals and from which any deviation is not tolerant. And the deviation from this routine can lead to the intense temper tantrums. So deviant motor patterns may include it in disturbance of behaviors, whereas it involves arms, hands, trunk, lower extremities, or entire body. Motor patterns in upper extremities are common, such as wiggling and flicking of fingers, and alternating or flexing and extension of fingers. And they also have a alternating pronation and supination of forearm. They like to do this. People with autism or a child with autism like to do this or flapping their hands. And other motility patterns that shown by them are head rolling and banging, body rocking and swaying, toe walking, lunging and darting movement. Also, they have an ability to perform two motor acts at the same time. Disturbance in sensory and perceptual processing is the most cases that have been reported in children with autism for almost 14 years. These include abnormal response to a various visual, vestibular, and auditory stimuli, where they are overly sensitive to sound, and have difficulty to cope with everyday environmental stimuli, such as uh, baby crying or a knocking door or some things that have a sound in it. Some study also show they also have an auditory under responsivity, and the over responsivity to tactile has also been reported in the literature. Children with over responsivity or high hypersensitivity are more likely to exhibit inflexible behaviors such as stereotypies and repetitive actions. For example, when they are consuming food, they like the food that have a taste, or they the food have a temperature, such as the nugget that they want to eat freshly cooked and eat immediately after cook. There are also an associated impairment with children autism. Firstly is intellectual impairment. Secondly, they also have a seizure disorder, which most reportedly is a tonic, clonic, and complex partial seizure. And they have a discontinuities in developmental rates. There also a fact that there also a fact that the children with autism have a or large of them have a cognitive deficiencies and have a significant long-term disability. Although most children with autism have normal life expectancy, the functional prognosis is diverse. They are closely related to communication skills and intelligence. Some individuals with high functioning autism or other type of PDD live and work independently in the community. Some are fairly independent, which they only need minimal support to work, whereas others continue to depend on support from family and friends. Higher functioning children may become high functioning adults with deficits in social interaction, but the prognosis for independent functioning through behavioral and sensory intervention is encouraging. So, the comprehensive intervention to treat autism is firstly including a parental counseling, behavioral treatment, special education in a structured environment, sensory integrative therapy, social skills training, speech language therapy, medication, and also family support. This constitute is the best management for children with autism and other types of PDD to be treated or to be intervened in their disorder. So, in general, studies to this date indicate that individuals with autism respond best to a highly structured, specialized educational program that includes elements of communication, therapy, social skills training, and also sensory integration therapy. The medication used for these students include sedative, stimulants, major and minor tranquilizers, antihistamine and antidepressant, also psychotropic medication. But it is believed that an interdisciplinary special education program with medication work best in conjunction with to treat the autism spectrum disorder and other PDD. So that's all for my presentation today. Thank you for listening. Bye bye.